In this video there will be no repair. I'm going to disassemble vintage Commodore SR 4148 calculator, clean it and then reassemble. So we start with 2 screws at the back, and then the back and the front of the calculator should be easy to disengage. And inside we're going to see very simple electronics. There is this tape providing electricity to the display. Normally just below the display there is a battery, but here the battery luckily was removed by someone in the past. So there was no damage to the to any of the PCBs or connections. So you can still see the wires that were battery was attached with 3 cells, nickel cadmium cells there. But as I said, luckily they were removed. And here it is, the PCB together with this tape is being removed, and then between the PCBs there are 2 quite thick cardboards. One is glued to the back of the keyboard PCB. They are really good quality. Everything inside is really good quality. Very thick copper tracks. There is hardly any corrosion after all those years. This calculator was made in 1970s, and there is hardly any corrosion. The glue is so sticky even after all those years. After 50 years, most of the things inside is exactly like new. This is amazing how good components were. In order to remove the keys and wash the enclosure, we need to remove the keyboard, the buttons. So 8 screws need to be removed, and then you have to lift it very carefully because there is a lot of tiny springs and it's very easy to lose them. They are very jumpy, very quickly can go off the workbench and hide in a dark corner of the room. But first we remove the switch, the power switch. This is the copper element that slides on the PCB, and here is the plastic slider. And now we remove all these springs. Just one piece of advice: there is a sort of like temptation to just flip it over and put everything, and everything falls off. But don't do it. These springs can attach to one to another very, very quickly and tangle in a big metal mass. And then it takes ages to disengage them from themselves. So just put them separately somewhere on the side, and that's why I'm doing it that way, rather than just sort of like quickly flipping the whole assembly over. Here it is, the layout of the keyboard. That's just for me a reference in case I couldn't remember where those keys should be. So that's the position, and now we can remove those keys. They are actually quite yellowed with age. So I'm going to try and bring them back to color. But first, at the back of each button there is a rubber connector. There's a conductive rubber that provides contact when key is pressed, when the button is pressed. So I need to remove all these rubbery contacts from each key. So when we wash the keys, then later when we try to get some chemicals to remove the color, they're not going to get damaged. So so now they go to the soapy bath, and then there will be I used a hydrogen peroxide to get the yellowish tinge off. The enclosure, the plastics, have been washed in a warm soap water. They are in very good shape. I can't see any cracks. Be careful when you deal with the cover for the display, because this acrylic can scratch very easy, even with some what looks like a soft cloth, can leave marks on it. And then I have all these buttons, and some of them are yellowed. Well, actually all of them are a little bit yellowed, some of them more, some of them less. So I will try and use hydrogen peroxide, 12% hydrogen peroxide on the plastic. I leave the buttons with a hydrogen peroxide and see if this is going to get them slightly more a proper color. This yellowish tinge is going to disappear. Okay, so after a couple of days soaking them in the hydrogen peroxide, they're definitely better. This yellowish tinge is less. It's still there, but it's definitely better. So right now it's time to put everything back. So it's reverse order really. First, these rubber contacts go at the back of each button, and then we'll need to make sure that every key, every button finds its place. It's back where it should be. So it's always useful to have a reference. I'm lucky to have a user manual for this calculator, and there is a layout in this user manual, so that's what I'm going to do. Otherwise I would just use the video. So I put all buttons in the correct order, and then I'll transfer them afterwards into the enclosure. So it's nicely washed. The display screen is installed, and here we go. Each key goes in, and then in a moment we're going to put the springs. First, let's remove the dust and put some springs, all of the springs back and on each button. The keyboard's of really high quality. I really like the feel of the keyboard. It's really good. And now the power switch. So the copper slider goes on the plastic switch, and then all needs to be put inside the enclosure. inside the front part of the calculator. Just needs to click. Okay, here we go. That's in. Careful not to lose any springs. And now, again, very careful not to disturb any of those springs. So it needs to go basically from the top without any side-to-side moves. It's worth to shake it a little bit with the PCB still being a little bit above the keyboard, just to make sure everything is comfortably in place. And now all these 8 screws that we removed in the first place to get to the keyboard need to go back. Don't over tighten them as usual, just enough to hold it in place. It doesn't have to be very tight. It's enough, it's not loose. Now let's check every key, that there is no problem. Every key needs to be springy, easy to push, easy to remove. And also it's worth if keyboard works at this point. So I plugged it in and I'm testing. You can't see it because I'm holding the display in my left hand, but I was testing whether keyboard is actually working before putting everything back together. Now these 2 cardboards that separate PCBs prevent them from shorts. I haven't glued this back. There is still some residual glue on the back of PCB. I'm almost certain that this will still be enough. And now the top PCB, that's the main PCB actually, goes in. The main chip is at the bottom, and then we have some display control chips above it, and all the discrete elements provide power supply to the main board and charge battery. It is very simple again design, very few components. If the main chip goes bad, then that's it. There is a video on my channel from a couple of years ago when there was identical calculator I was working on that had faulty display. Again, these displays are very delicate, so it's worth to take care of them and not to and provide good power supply basically, because they are very sensitive to any voltage variations. That's the power supply socket that goes above the display, that is in the correct position. So click gently into position. I left the battery wires in just in case in the future I or someone else wants to get the battery replaced. And now all this components is to find its place, so cables are not caught between the 2 pieces of enclosure, and they do not obstruct the screws. 2 screws go back, and the next thing is we need to test it. Again, just enough to 2 pieces not to be loose, and don't have to be very tight. Let's switch it on, and it works. The best thing I like about this calculator, apart from the keyboard, is this red display. It is such a vivid red. You don't have this in the modern LED displays. It's really nice. I really like this Commodore calculators, and I'm going to probably use it. if necessary. So it goes into the pouch. That's the original pouch that I've got. No, it doesn't fit there because it can split this pouch. The user manual was in the box, so there should be what is missing. Just is the box. So that's the user manual. That's the calculator in the leatherette pouch, and that's a USB power supply, 6-volt power supply. So that is actually step-up circuit in this box to provide 6 volts to the calculator from USB. That's it. All done.